Got it.
So, it's about hip width apart, and just nice and easy as you start off, as always. Just give yourself that time to settle in. A couple of slow, gentle breaths every now and then, and use that idea of the breath coming into your body to let your thoughts just follow in, so that increasingly you as you start to sort of move into the session, you're focusing your attention on that, what I refer to sometimes the inner landscape of the body. At those moments, you know, you maybe go somewhere, maybe go to the coast or somewhere, and just, you know, you get there and you stop and you just look out and you think, oh, isn't it nice to be here, kind of thing. Just take that time. Excuse me. So, a long weekend at the folk festival. Dry and dusty, but it was very nice. Anyway, yeah, as we get more familiar with that inner landscape, we get a sense of arriving. That's when we can begin to just feed in technical detail as I think about it. So, you know, think about where your knees are. Have a look down. Can you see that your knees have gone no further forwards than the balls of your feet? Maybe not even that far forwards. Why not that far forwards today? So it's quite variable, especially at the start of a session, you know, whether it's your own practice or a class, because obviously, you know, your body needs to warm up a little bit. The muscles need to warm up. You need to settle in to the posture. And for that, at your kind of level, with your level here, who's got that sort of experience, then that's actually quite a straightforward process. It's a memory, isn't it, of you know, this is how it can feel. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means that it's a good starting point. Gradually becoming more detailed, more precise. So if for instance, you go by the idea that your weight is just behind the ball of each foot, you then drop back and you can see now, as it happens now, it feels as though my knees are getting sort of further forwards. And this is not this isn't necessarily something you would do after a kind of couple of weeks of not practicing or something like that. I was practicing this morning, so it's a starting point for mind and body. Then you're turning in the middle of your body. You've got this swinging movement there, and you know, if it helps and if it's comfortable for you, just placing the hand on your lower back and or your belly, maybe your hips as well, and just sort of, you know, carrying the analogy of just arriving at the beach a little bit closer. This is maybe sort of like dipping your hand in the water to see, just to feel how cold it is or something like that. Feeling the effect of that movement in the center of your body going up into your ribs, into your shoulders, and finally moving sort of in this way. We realize that our arms begin to move, just following the body in. Our head sitting nicely on top of our shoulders, either moving. You can see now my head is moving. And so moving with the body is what I mean. So in fact, the head isn't moving, the head is just staying there. Or looking ahead and feeling your body move underneath your head. Or some kind of combination of the two. Quite often when you see me do this, I mean, when I'm standing in front of a class, I sort of be looking around. So I'll be turning in my body, but I won't necessarily stick to either of those particularly. And often, you know, outside is the same thing. You just get a sense and you begin to realize how when your body moves, you have an option on how far or if your head moves with it. Your eyes will be scanning the environment around you. So we're not trying to cut ourselves off from that. You may find that for a few moments, just to reinforce this feeling of focusing inwards, you want to close your eyes. That's fine. But it's probably not something we'd want to do all the time. And then just raising your arms a little bit. And just drop your hands down. Shake your legs out. I forgot to mute you, so I should do that now. So feet hip width apart. Remember that depending on what suits you really, that could be measured from the outside of the foot or the midline of the foot or the inside of the foot, giving you a little bit of variation in exactly what hip width means. I prefer the slightly wider stance, but other people, particularly other styles of Tai Chi, they will use it slightly differently. Feet pointed forwards or just a little bit turned out. Try not to turn them out too far. As soon as you get to sort of here or even before that, the rotation has kind of pressed in on the lower part of your back. And of course, we want as much space there as possible. Feeling, particularly if you're taking the wider stance, that your torso is somehow sliding down between your legs. Hips more or less above your ankle. And then dropping back a little bit more and pushing up. Dropping back and pushing up. And stay with just this movement for the moment. Don't overdo it. Be careful of your knees. But as you push up, try and focus your attention just here, the tail of your spine and the pelvis. So you feel that little bit of a push there, going up into your back a little way. Just a gentle pressure there. And of course, the opposite as you sink down, the release of that pressure. Focus on the upward movement, just feeling that pressure will be there all the way up your back because your back is one unit, your body is one unit. But just see if you can be aware of that. You don't have to make it happen. So in your mind's eye, bring it out of the background into the foreground. And we start to feel that lengthening and contraction in our spine. Which spreads sideways, but also forwards. So you feel eventually the expansion all the way up through your whole body and then down again. Bringing your hands around as though you're cradling a ball. Sinking down. Now focus on the downward movement for a few rounds. So we make sure that we are actually sinking down, rooting down. looking for that releasing feeling. And it's not something you can make happen, I don't think, but it's something that just happens quite naturally. And as your muscles, tendons, and ligaments soften up, you will every now and then get that slight sense of dropping a little bit further. Usually around sort of hips, lower back, sometimes in your knees, in my experience. Then change into the wild goose. It's a simple change, your hands just coming out, just feeling that expansion, just a little bit more strongly in your solar plexus. And then part in the clouds as your arms push up and down. That's in the expansion into upper part of your chest, and of course your arms themselves. Like water just rising up through your body, draining away again. See if you can hold your hands just slightly curved like that, not sort of bent in, but just these natural curves in the palm of your hand and your fingers, and the thumb in particular. Thumbs sometimes often sort of stick out. And although initially we don't pay a lot of attention to the hands, we want to feel that expanding movement reaches our fingertips. One more time after this one. And then change. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So this one, again, that expansion more on the side of your body, but as it expands, it pushes your elbow out, and then the elbow drops down and your hand would go out of the picture in my case. Hand just winds around and you pull down. So dragon plucking the stars, you can imagine just plucking a soft fruit. Try and imagine something like a peach. I guess a peach would be a very traditional image in a lot of these arts. But the point is that what you're not doing is gripping tightly. You're wrapping your fingers around the peach. One more time. And then both hands together, pushing up just a little bit above your head. And slightly in front, not pulled back. And down. And the sideways movement without the turn, just pushing out. Again, your hands slightly in front of your shoulders, not there, there. Retaining a long, broad feeling through your back. And again, keeping that as you turn, so adding the turn as you push sideways. And back. It's just a feeling in your back and your spine. You have an idea, initially at least, that you're turning around your spine like a wheel will turn around its axle. Just remind yourself of that feeling of your hips dropping back. Torso sliding down between your legs. One more round, your body expanding and contracting. Expanding and contracting. A nice steady rhythm building in the movement. And then with the next expansion, just on one side of your body, elbow slightly curved, palm of your hand facing outwards, so your arm just swings around and up. And then again, slightly in front of your body, dropping down. This time add in the turn. And then switch sides. Add in a turn. And then roundabout in the middle of the leg. Hips going back, buttocks going back, very gently, and then hips dropping down. And the key thing here really isn't sort of making a big leaning movement, tilting movement, but rather just how do we get from this position back to the upright stance without straining? So again, feel what's happening here in the lower part of your back. There, and then the hips drop back, and you can just feel the spine gently tucking under, but it's your hips dropping back. Well, that is a good focal point here. And the same thing with polishing the table. So now your hands at hip height, you turn again, pushing your hips back, swinging around, and back up. One more time. And then your hands drop down. Check. When we do a movement like Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky, or the circling palms movement, what we're getting is that expansion through one side of our body. Once we've got that movement in, say, obviously the legs and the torso, the arms, and even the empty leg in some cases, when we say stepping, have an opportunity to use that energy, to use that movement to help them move in a particular direction. You decide what the direction is. So if you're following a particular exercise, then you carry on doing the exercise. So just following that principle, on one side of your body, pushing up. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So just do this to remind yourself of this feeling, however you're experiencing it, in that side of your body. For the next one, you've still got that feeling, but you just turn your hand palm up and it comes up, the shoulder height, turns and down again. And then pushing up and down. Notice that when my arm rises here, my elbow's hanging down. It's here, not here. So it's almost as though in the contracting stage, that contraction through your body pulls your elbow down. But because you want to keep your hand out there, you just let it come in a gentle curve. Now, you'll probably recognize this. This time, as you expand in that side of the body, move across to the opposite side, raise the empty heel and turn your body. So none of those additional instructions suggested doing anything different with your arm or indeed your torso, apart from here in the center of your body where you're turning. So at this point, if I just come back and don't move my hand, it's in the same position as it would have been before I started moving my weight. You can have your feet slightly turned out, and this is partly because here it helps you to drop the weight into that leg, and indeed on the other one when you come back. Partly because we have this turning movement here, and you see what my foot's doing. Again, exaggeration. I come back, that turns the foot in. Now, try the same thing on the opposite side. First of all, a couple of rounds of dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And then we're going to change to that palm up movement. One thing you can do, because we're just doing one side mode, place your other hand just here in front of your shoulder. You'll feel a little bit of movement, a little bit of change there. And then add in the transfer of your weight and the turn, but it feels the same underneath your hand touching the shoulder. In other words, what you're not doing is something like this, pulling your shoulder around or bringing your hand across or anything like that. Let the first hand drop down and then alternating the movement for rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. So most of the movement coming up from the foot through the side of your body. The heel coming off the ground allows two things here. It allows a greater range of movement in the rotation. If I don't take my heel off, this is about as far as I can turn comfortably without pulling. Otherwise, I don't want to start pulling my body around. If I let the heel come off, notice how I can turn a bit further. It also allows for the sinking down, and now see, we just try gently pushing the ball of the foot that you're on into the ground. And it can have a considerable amount of power. Remember, your legs are like springs, so this is a compression here. You can see that, and you compress the spring, and what will happen is it will expand outwards. So having your feet turned out allows for the sinking down. There's barely a moment when we might experience that stiffening up, that blocking in the lower part of the back, but because it's a transitional thing, it's not significant. And again, we feel that sense of a push up through our back, through our spine, expansion out through the rest of the body. And then hands out a little bit, swing, and this time hands staying parallel to each other, well, in line with each other, I should say, that they're actually radiating slightly out from the shoulders. This is cow gazing at the moon. Initially, the moon is in front of you, but off to the corner. You're looking through your hands here. Maybe as you loosen up, this moves around over your shoulder a little bit. Not straining in your back for the bigger movement now. And with that long, broad feeling up through your back. One more time on each side. And then just come back to the center. Give you a little shake. So in those two movements, and I think particularly in hitting the ball in front of the shoulder, once again, we see the crucial importance of the sinking down. You know, you wouldn't be able to bounce the ball if it didn't go down first. So the sinking down, the rooting down is the root of the movement in more than one way. It's the root of the movement because it's the dropping of the center of gravity that gives us the stability, if you like, the foundation for the movement, and stops us having to sort of like, you know, get to here and think, oh, I'm going to fall over or something like that. But it is also the action that creates the potential for the movement. Like if you were going to fire an arrow from a bow, you wouldn't just sort of like leave it there and let go of the arrow. It's just going to drop out. You have to load the bow first. And so sometimes these actions in Tai Chi are described as loading and releasing. You'd load the body in a particular way for a particular release. You can think about it in different ways, but all of them point towards the significance of that movement down into the ground in one way or another. Then here, with one foot forwards, and the same thing again. transferring your weight forwards and backwards. And it's good to take just a moment in this position here rather than this. You get back and you just feel that sense of settling in, just like at the beginning of the session. Yeah, I said, take your time, give yourself time to sort of, if you like, engage with that inner landscape. It's the same idea, more specific, obviously, because you're thinking about actually rooting down. So it's the, but it's the same idea, just much more specific and much more detailed in that sense. And after a while, what you feel is that you don't have to think, right, is now the right time to go forward, because your leg reaches a point of fullness, we might describe it as, where if you were to go any further, you get to here, oh, I'm going to push that, it's starting to tighten up. And so once it's reached that point, there's again that slight pause, and then it pushes you back. So another thing the focus of attention on the rooting down does is that it actually helps you with the timing of these things. As you sink back, now your front toes come up. When you're in the front leg, it's the back heel. And then stepping in. And then on the other side. So left foot forward, or whichever foot it was, and begin to just transfer your weight, not hurrying. And of course, when we feel the release from the leg, we feel that slight sense of pressure in the lower back. Our intent means that what we do with that movement, what we do with that energy, is we take it into the empty leg. And raising your toes and your heel. And then stepping in. and then step through. And going back. And so again, we have, through observation of the inner landscape of the body, a kind of way into the way that we move in Tai Chi. And you can begin to see, if you're going to work within that inner landscape, you can't do that if you're not aware of what the inner landscape is. You can't follow a path if you don't know where the path is. And everything in Tai Chi will come from the ground and from the feet in one way or another. And we get guided by a particular feel. So there's this very distinctive quality that builds in the movement of the arms. Again, there's various ways of describing it, which I won't go into because it's really about your experience of it. But when you lose that feeling, which we do all the time, then what we want is to automatically let our attention go back to the beat once again, and build it up from there. That becomes a kind of automatic program, really, running in the back of your mind. So have your right foot forward, sink back, hold your hands over your belly, ease forwards, pushing your arms forwards, feeling your fingers separate. Pigeon spreads its wings. Sit back. Going forwards, feeling the expansion through belly, solar plexus, and up into your chest. Going back, you feel the contraction going down. As you go back, and the front of your body is contracting inwards, your back is opening, and vice versa. So here, it's almost like your shoulder blades are sliding together. And then your hands drop down. You drop straight down from your shoulders. Next time you go forward, like somebody's just holding on to them for a moment and then letting them swing through. Going back, same idea. So there's a slight, very slight delay in the movement of your weight to the movement of your hands. Fairly noticeable. Actually, delay is probably the wrong way, probably the wrong term, because it's not so much a delay as it is a period when the movement comes up through your leg, through your back, and so on and so forth. So the movement is still happening. It's just that the arms are the last part of the body to receive the movement. Same here with pushing away. So here, going forwards. Now, if you think about it, it's almost like here, my arms were springs, they too would be being bunched up here. And the leg expands, the back expands, and then the arms expand. I'm exaggerating, but I've gone too far there. But I want you to see, it's in the foot, in the spine, and then in the arms and hands, without the legs, of course. Do one more of these. Leaving your right hand in front, the one above the front leg. Sink back, draw your left hand down, turn your body slightly, swing your arm up, let your elbow drop again so your hand comes into your shoulder. Turn your front hand palm up. Now when you move your weight forward, the center of your body turns, and we get this push-pull movement coming through our arms. Continuing that with the right hand swinging up. So again, thinking about those moments when we settle into the leg. Again, pause can be very misleading because your body's turning, you're settling down into your leg, you're waiting for your hand to arrive. If it doesn't have that same distinctive feel that you associate with Tai Chi, look to your legs first of all. And if you feel that you're somehow kind of trying too hard with the arms, shoulders, arms, hands, nice and soft. Notice how my hand doesn't stay out here, it comes to there, it comes into the shoulder before it goes forwards. It comes into the shoulder before it goes forwards. A lot of that happens as you're resting on that front leg, and the front hand stays up. So if you do this, you lose the precision of the movement. See where my front hand is? All it does is rotate. One more time. And shake out. So as we become more familiar with that inner landscape, and we're more precise really in our movements, we realize that the precision actually helps with the movement. And quite often when it feels as though the arms are going awry, the arms don't feel right, actually the wrong thing to do is to think about the arms. We need to work out why they don't go right. So with Repulsor Monkey, if my hands are in this position and I'm on my front leg, and notice the angle of my body, I move my weight back, I settle into that back foot, and I turn my body. Look what my arms do. This is the basic movement, which I then just extend into this. But without that basic movement, this doesn't do anything. And what was happening there was a tendency for your arm to be out here. It's no use to you out there. It comes around in a circle back to your shoulder. Around in a circle back to your shoulder. The circular movement is in itself quite a natural movement. If I do this, for instance, I don't have to think about what to do with my hands, provided I'm using my body. And I could go, oh, okay, I'll turn it into a circle. Because the nature of a circle is you end up back at the beginning. and your arm is attached at one end and not at the other. So if you don't interfere with the hand, if you don't try and do anything, it's going to move in a circle in one way or another. It might not be the circle that you want, but it will be circular. So have your other foot forwards, your left foot forwards. Begin the game with pigeon spreads its wings. One more time. And then fisherman cast the net. Then push and wave. And then Repulsor Monkey. This time when you go back, just turn the front foot out a little bit. So now you go forwards, and as you raise the opposite hand, and you can bring the foot in, step, and then go through. Raise the back heel, bring the foot in, and step. And then when you go back, same idea. You raise the front toes, bring your foot in, and step. So now as you settle into that foot, several things are going on, getting ready for the next movement. One more time. And so when we do a movement like that, And of course, this takes us closer to the sort of complexity we find in the Tai Chi forms. I always remember something my first teacher constantly said, virtually every week, you know, that the seed of the next movement is in the movement that you're doing. So you may not be too sure on what's going to happen next, but that's not a useful question. The question is, am I settled in my leg? So for the next movement will come out of the movement that you're in. So if you don't get the movement that you're in correct, you can't do the next movement. It's like when we're looking at movements like that, it's like I've given you a set of directions. You know, you want to get to the train station, go down the road, turn left, go down that bottom of the road, turn right, and you'll see the train station in front of you. If you go down the road and turn right, then it doesn't matter how good the instructions that come after are, because you've gone the wrong way already. And the only way you're going to be able to get back, as it were, is to go back to the point where you made the mistake and do it correctly. So it encourages this focus of attention in that particular moment. It's tricky. It's a simple enough idea, but it's very tricky to make work. So just rubbing your hands together. Tap it over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. The other side. Onto your back. Around your hips. Nice on your belly. The upper part of your chest. So the starting point, the finishing point, the point where I think, you know, we're most likely to take the wrong turning is in that moment where we're aiming to settle just for a moment, not to rush ahead. And I often notice that we speed up when we're doing movement sometimes. So got to get it done. And so that's like running down the road and missing the turning. You know, if you're in too much of a hurry, you'll miss those key points of change. They're not in and of themselves difficult movements. They're not massively complicated, and they don't require massive athleticism or anything like that. But what is difficult, I think, is bringing the mind correctly into them. So Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain really emphasizes that sense of just settling. It makes it a really important exercise. Well, all sorts of, not just for remembering difficult movements, but for all sorts of reasons. And it's just recognizing that the pull of gravity is really the thing that encourages us to settle, encourages that sense of the stillness, if you like to think of it like that, or whatever your experience of it is. One more time. And rest. Check out. Thank you very much, everybody.